Hello there and welcome back to another review. Today we're going to be looking at Basket Case 2, which I've got here on the Blu-ray trilogy box set. We'll get round to reviewing all the Basket Case films, just one more to go, but we'll look at Basket Case 2 today. Made 8 years after the original, so there's quite a bit of time has lapsed between Basket Case 1 and Basket Case 2. I'd say this was made in 1990. Here we have the sequel, which to me is every bit as good as the original. I think in many ways I think the first film, it was that instant sort of cult status the minute it was sort of released. The minute you saw it, I can imagine it was just instant cult hit. Here, everything is every bit as good. The quality and the entertainment factor goes up in my view, and it's more worth... it's more than a worthy sequel, picking up exactly where the last film left off. It's not sort of you find out sort of where the Bradley brothers are now. It picks up exactly where the last film left off. I mean, credit as well to, just having the balls to do that, to do a sequel to a film, set it immediately after. I mean, bearing in mind the film was made so many years after the original. Again, directed by Frank Henenlotter and starring Kevin Van Hentenryck as Duane Bradley. It's dark, it's weird, it's bizarre, but at the same time there are moments of pathos here, much like the first film where there are moments of genuine, you do feel for the Bradley brothers. I loved it when I first saw it, just like the original. It's one of them movies that, you think, you watch Basket Case, and then, like with a lot of, don't matter what the genre is, it doesn't matter what genre you're watching, whether you're watching sci-fi, action, sequels don't necessarily always. There are sequels that more than live up to, the original. Aliens, Terminator 2, there's loads of them, Godfather Part 2. But you go to Basket Case 2 and it's the same thing. In many ways it's better, in many ways it's superior. It still works, it's still a great fun film. I mean, all the Basket Case films are really, really good, and Basket Case 2 is no exception. So the film starts, as I mentioned, just exactly how the last film ended, seeing the two brothers fall from the building. We then zoom out from the eye of sort of Psycho style of Belial. There's this, you sort of pan out from his eye. It's like this this cartoon drawing of him, which is quite creepy in itself, in them opening credits. Then we cut to Granny Ruth and Susan, who see this on the TV, and they see what's happening. They're like, right, let's roll, right, let's go. And so you don't know who these characters are at this point. They say, so the brothers go to the hospital first, and here Belial straight away we can see is a lot better looking. The puppet they've got and just the way he is, it's not as, obviously, because the budget might have been a lot bigger with this one, obviously. It's made it, they probably had a bit more in terms of sort of props and just like the way the puppet was constructed and what they could do. So Belial straight away looks better, and I think they wanted to show that off straight away. I think they wanted to show the audience, look how good he looks in this movie compared to the first one. It looks a lot better, looks a lot more realistic. They go to escape, kill a security guard, so their murderous tendencies are still very much intact. They're still very much there. And he puts Belial in the laundry basket, which Duane pushes right to the front door quite easily, even though they had a security guard and that. They kill him, just pushing him in, doesn't get confronted by any of the other staff, just puts Belial in the classic sneaking out in the laundry basket, pushes him out the front door, and at the same time Granny Ruth and Susan just so happen to be pulling up outside, and she takes them both back to hers. I love these lovely sweet plot conveniences that always seem to sort of happen in regards to just getting the plot moving forward. So Granny Ruth, it turns out, used to know their aunt, and explains to Belial there are others like him there. So she's taken them back to their house, and she's like, there are others here, there's others that are, that are just like you. She puts him in a basket because she says, you like to be in a basket, don't you? So she takes him up to the attic where we meet others that are sort of deformed in some way, have someone with an oversized head and an undeveloped body that can sing opera. There's also Eve, who's the female version of Belial. And at the same time with this going on, so he's met all these other people who have sort of abnormality about them. There's this reporter Marcy who is chasing the Bradleys as the story sells, and people want to know more about the Bradley brothers and what's been happening and what's been going on. We learn that Ruth used to run this missionary for unique individuals, and still does, but she sort of covers it up now. So as I say, they're all sort of kept in the attic, and but there's the trouble is, although you like me saying that, where the film is sort of if you look into it, they're comfortable. Like, these people are comfortable that Granny Ruth is actually helping these people. She's actually, they are a family there, and that's what's very interesting about Basket Case 2 is that as it goes on, well, I will get to it, but Duane is the odd one out. This is where Basket Case 2 is. I mean, it is in many ways genius. Just the idea that Duane is in, all he wants to do is have sort of a normal life, but it's Belial who ends up getting a good life, and Belial ends up finding sort of love and things like that, whereas Duane is sort of the odd one out, and that's very interesting. That's a great bit of like script writing and just dialogue, and just it's a great plot. I think it really does work, but we'll be getting into that. So yeah, Granny Ruth sort of runs this like missionary, and then we have like this crazy old guy called Mr. Barker who is running like this fake exhibit with like paper mache and fake monsters. Tells this reporter like Marcy, he has Belial and he wants like £1,000. No, not 1,000. I think it's 100. I think it's even less than that. I think it's $100. He said like, I'll pick up 100 big ones. So Ruth shows up to inspect this property, and this guy, I have no idea. I probably can't remember his name, but he's hilarious. This dude is absolutely hilarious, the one who's doing the fake exhibit. It just really does make me laugh, this guy. Absolutely insane. He's insane, but in such a funny way. Doesn't even look at Ruth when he's talking to her. It's just little things like that. I mean, he's in his long johns. It's just funny. It's just this character, this guy, and it doesn't serve a lot of purpose, this scene. It doesn't really add much to the film necessarily, but it's just a random little quirky scene, and this guy, it's just, they should have kept him in it a bit longer. So she sets Belial on him, and it's as it's insulting to him. I don't think the film, like I say, needed this sort of scene. It doesn't add anything. It doesn't advance the plot, but it's still, entertaining nonetheless. It still works. So a reporter goes there, finds Mr. Barker dead. Granny Ruth is giving Belial sort of counselling, we'll find out. So they cut to sort of Granny Ruth sort of, Belial's been sort of like talking to her and things like that. I'm not sure how Granny Ruth actually understands Belial. I guess she's just, over the years, I don't know, but Granny Ruth can understand him quite well. Where, there is funny scenes where she goes, you want to grow, you want to get better, I understand, but she goes, you have to realise that probably, ripping people's faces off may not be in your best interest. There's little lines of dialogue that where it is just a little wink to the camera, to the audience. There are moments of comedy where it's not meant to be taken that seriously. So Duane has this new haircut. In this film, it's not sort of massively permed as it was in the first one. And he thinks he's now free, as Belial was sort of happy here at this sort of missionary with Granny Ruth. Like, he thinks he's free of the burden of Belial, which is sort of, he starts, the first film, he's sort of helping like Belial, and they're working together as a team to sort of get vengeance. That at the same time, when he's dating in the first film, or trying to date, he does still want to be free of this burden. He does view Belial as a burden, like he's always having to help him, support him, do everything that he wants. So he thinks, okay, Belial's happy here, I can actually start a new life for myself, right? I can get things happening for me. So he thinks, like I say, because he's looked after, and he wants to run away with Susan, who is there too, and she seems initially normal like he does, but we'll get into that. The thing is, in this place, like I mentioned, Duane is the freak. Duane is the odd one out. Duane Belial is the one fitting in, even going so far as to laugh at Duane at one point, because Duane confronts him about what he wants and what he's going to do, and Belial just laughs in his face. He just completely mocks him. Because as much as these brothers love each other, there is just as much resentment there as well. Like, it's almost like, in a way, Duane and Belial are competing, about who's going to be happiest first, that kind of thing. Reporter comes to question Ruth, at which point Duane walks in, not knowing she was there, and recognise him and leave. So the reporter finds out that Duane is staying there, so ergo Belial must be staying there as well. Granny Ruth, played by Annie Ross, she's worried, says, she's like, well, what are we going to do? And she's like, well, Duane says, I'll stay and I'll fight. Suddenly it becomes like we've got to rally together, we've got to confront this evil that's coming in. And she goes into the attic and in this like some sort of majestic gown and does this amazing sort of speech. Annie Ross is absolutely loving this, you can tell. Starts giving them about how much they must stand up and fight against those who are trying to invade their life. She's brilliant in this scene, really, really good, and having so much fun with it. So Marcy gets her photographer friend to break in and get photos of Duane, but he gets greedy and wants one of Belial. So he sort of sneaks in. He's pushing his luck, this guy really is pushing his luck. He goes up to the attic, and when the flash goes off, he sees all the other freaks in sort of people with all the like abnormalities and deformities. He sees them all in the attic. It's quite creepy as well, this bit where he's sort of taking photos and the flash keeps going, but they keep coming nearer and nearer and nearer. It's quite creepy, and Belial attacks him. She then tries her private detective friend. There's this old guy she contacts who's sort of this detective she knows, who phones Duane and gets him to meet him at the bar. I love as well, this guy's sort of quote unquote a detective. They put him in the stereotypical trench coat and hat, like the typical private eye get up. Just you've got to have the classic detective look. Turns out Granny Ruth's like crew have taken over the bar. I'm not sure how that worked. I know there was a dead guy in the stock room, but how could they be sure like no one else was going to walk in? I'm not sure if they killed the barman or just took over the bar. It's not like because the detective walked in fine. How was they not sure somebody else was going to walk in? I don't know. But little plot thing now. I'm not too sure. Maybe one of you out there can let me know. But I know there's a dead guy in the stock room, but I'm not sure if it was like a favour to Granny Ruth or they killed the owner of the bar. I don't know. So Belial kills him too. It's always, and this is the thing, it's always Belial doing all the work. Like Granny Ruth does this speech about we've all got to work together, we've got to stop this, people intruding on our lives. But it's Belial doing all the killings and Belial doing all the work. The rest of them don't really do much. It's just Belial sort of doing everything. Which, if I was Belial, I'd be like, oh, is anybody else going to do it? Can somebody else like bump this one off? Why has it always got to be me? The others, as I say, don't do much. Then they go to sort of Marcy's and get in her apartment, and then they kill her, the reporter. You think is sort of the lead, not the lead, or you think sort of, because Duane has a thing for Susan, and you're not really sure the role of like sort of Marcy, the reporter, and all she is mainly largely the antagonist of the film, even though all she's trying to do is get a story. She is sort of is harmless enough in herself. She is mainly the sort of main sort of evil force in the film, even though all she wants to do is just find out where Duane and Belial are. So they kill her. Kevin Van Hentenryck still playing it that naive yet unhinged at the same time. He, like I've mentioned in my Basket Case 1 review, he is perfect as Duane Bradley. He absolutely is 100% perfect as Duane Bradley. He just nails the part so well. So they basically rip Marcy has the worst probably death of anybody in the film. She gets her face ripped off. And then Duane's like, look, Marcy, now you're a freak too. Duane does have that element about him where he is a psycho. Like, he is absolutely just as much as unhinged as sort of Belial is. They're both sort of twisted in the same way. But there is, like with the first film, that element of where you do feel sorry for them. You do, especially in this film, you do feel really for Duane. Where first film, it's more sort of shock. As they're sort of together, but you do feel for Belial. In this film, you're really feeling sorry for Duane, especially near the end as the film goes on. So that night, Duane still wants him and Susan to run away. He's like, look, come on, that's been sorted out. We've killed her, but let's run away. Let's make a life for ourselves. He wants him and Susan to leave together. Belial and Eve are bonding, even having the two even having a sex scene, which is look out for that with Belial and Eve. Then we have what I would say the freakiest bit in the whole film, and this was another one that I remember they put on. I think it was on the Horror Channel on Sky, and it was on one and ages and ages ago. ages ago, and they put the Basket Case trilogy on one weekend, and this was when I first saw this movie. But the freakiest bit in the film, spoiler alert, is where Duane realizes that Susan is a freak too. It's, you know, like she has this like creature living in her belly, you know, this sort of like worm snake type thing that comes out, and she's like this really, the thing what makes it even, like, she's this really sweet polite girl, and she's like, you know, she goes, just normal, you know, and this thing comes out right up to Duane's face. And I remember watching it the first time thinking, what the, you know, it was just absolute. I just thought, where did that come from? Where did that come from? But even now watching it, it's still a bit, oh, you know, still comes out of nowhere. So Duane at this point has a complete breakdown. So he thinks, nothing's ever going to work for me. I'm never going to find somebody just who I want that is sort of normal, or, you know, just who's going to give me that life. So Duane has a complete freak out. Duane absolutely has a massive breakdown. He loses all forms of control and pushes her out the window, basically, and takes Belial and him and sort of starts to sew him and Belial back together, because he's like, well, we're obviously destined to be together forever, you know, and he just starts going crazy, and he starts sewing Belial back onto his body. And that's sort of how the film ends. It ends with them sort of sewn back together. And you already know that at that point there's going to be a third one. But yeah, that's Basket Case 2 in a nutshell. Really, very much, I think I'd say it's superior to the first film. While the first film will always be a classic, I think all the Basket Case films are really, really enjoyable. The film would say, in that last moment, Belial was happy, and Duane, that last moment of the film, Belial had everything he wanted, and Duane, realising he was never going to be, destroys that world because he's resentful that Belial's happy and he's not. So there are, like I said earlier in the review, there are moments of pathos, and there are moments where it's not just horror or just things done for gimmicky effect. There is a real sort of horrible sort of hatred between the two brothers. It seems no matter what he does, and the people around him will not let him have a normal life like what he wants. You know, it's a great sequel. It really is. I mean, it's a wonderful successor to the first film. So hopefully I will get round to reviewing Basket Case 3 really soon. But if you haven't ever seen it, make sure to go and check out Basket Case 2.